as a chiropractor?
Retired from the Santa Fe Railway in 1991. Got tired of being laid off and decided that I'd follow another career. Broke the mold. I was the fifth generation of my family to work for the railroad, so kind of followed in the health career, and my best friend was my chiropractor in Topeka, and got to doing some looking and started going to night school, and spent 4 years in night school and retired from Santa Fe in 1991.
And then a whole new world opened up.
A whole new world opened up.
So you graduated in 94,
Yes.
and you moved to Joplin.
Bought an existing practice here in Joplin, yes sir.
Okay. And so over all those many years, you've been helping people with wellness and their health, and they've had their own discoveries on the importance of having a well-adjusted spine. But then life changed on a personal level for you.
We had a big crisis in our family November 2 years ago. My wife and I came home from helping some friends move into their new home. Barbara found Cale upstairs in his bedroom. No heart rate. He was cyanotic. He was blue, not breathing. She let out the most blood-curdling scream I'd ever heard in my life. I don't want to hear it ever again. We passed on the stairs. She called 911. I attempted to get an airway cleared on Cale. I was able to get back the heart rate, was able to get a heart rate on him. I had difficulty getting the airway cleared. Basically what had happened, Cale had an allergic reaction to medication and had regurgitated while he was laying on his back and had aspirated in and literally was drowning in his own fluids. I worked on Cale for 13 minutes before the EMS got there. It was the longest 13 minutes of my life. They got there. We've got oxygen started on him. We did not know at the time how long Cale had been down when we found him. We did not know the extent of the brain damage that he had incurred. We got him out to St. John's here in Joplin, and the ER physician we had was just phenomenal. The guy was just phenomenal. Couldn't ask for a better physician. Walked us through everything, helped us through everything, got him stabilized, got him upstairs to an ICU. We spent 11 days in ICU here in Joplin, and then we were transferred to Mount Vernon to Missouri Rehab. And we spent 31 days in the ICU out of Missouri Rehab.
And tell me about Cale. After this incident happened, the reality of his condition set in. So what motor skills and what condition was he in where you and your wife were like, this is real serious? I mean, what happened?
We knew before he was transferred out to Mount Vernon, the CAT scans and the MRI showed that Cale had lost 26% of his white matter, the inner part of his brain. When he did come to, he had trouble recognizing us. He was responsive. I've had the awesome privilege of being able to watch my son learn how to walk and talk for the second time in one lifetime. And yeah, it's been an awesome privilege to be able to see it for a second time. Excuse me.
I know what you're wanting.
Yeah. You know what I need. Thank you.
You bet. You know, and as a dad myself, I've got to commend you for being able to keep it together and be focused during the 30 minutes before the EMTs got there.
Well, that was a tough 13 minutes.
That's when you realize that God's got a hand in things, because you just can't do it on your own.
No, you can't. And then to top it all off, you stop and think about how lucky Cale is, because he had two parents that are both in the medical field.
Yes.
And we both knew CPR. The young man was pretty daggum lucky we were there, and he was really lucky that we came home and we found him. And we did.
So Cale goes through therapy, physical therapy, and the prognosis, you start getting a prognosis and you're having these conversations. Were they ever communicating with you and your wife as though this maybe is as good as it gets?
Yeah, unfortunately, the conventional wisdom with the medical field, I'm part of it too, unfortunately dictates that once you have a traumatic head injury, that's it. It's irreversible. That's your bet. What you see is what you get. While Cale did learn how to feed himself again, walk and talk, there were some limitations that Cale was having problems with. He was having problems walking. The really unique thing about where Cale was that Missouri Rehab allowed me to be there for the first. And I decided that I had to be there for me and for him and to document him. So the first time he brushed his hair, combed his hair, I was there and I photographed it. First time he brushed his teeth, I was there. First time he washed his face, I was there. The second time, I didn't get to be there the first time, but the second time that he fed himself, I was there. Got photos of his fine motor skills weren't there. And basically it was a roast beef sandwich just literally squeezed in between the fingers. And he had trouble getting it to his mouth, but my gosh, when he got it there, it was a good victory. It was a big victory for us. And it was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was real good. Excuse me.
So you're having these steps of victories. So while that's going on, like any passionate parent, you're doing some research.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that led you to kind of where we're at now.
Right.
Tell me about that process.
One of the things that I was impressed upon was hyperbaric oxygen. That traumatic head injuries, which Cale is classified as a anoxic brain injury or traumatic brain injury, respond very favorably to hyperbaric oxygen. And I approached them there at Missouri Rehab and said, hey, where's the hyperbaric oxygen chamber? Well, they didn't have one. I called Dr. Joseph Newman. He was over here at St. John's and was checking into getting Cale into their hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And about that time, the 2011 tornado hit. After the tornado, I got very aggressive into checking with our insurance company, see if they would cover hyperbaric oxygen. And I spent 3 or 4 months battling with them, doing appeals, doing another appeal, and doing a final appeal to get Cale into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And they finally said no. The problem with hyperbaric oxygen chambers in therapy is that there are no phase 2 studies to document how well hyperbaric oxygen treats traumatic head injuries. Henceforth, the insurance companies look at it as being an off-label use, experimental, or investigational. Therefore, they won't cover it because it's not approved by the FDA. So, our insurance company would not cover Cale in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So what we did is I got to looking at my license. What I found out is underneath the auspice of my license, I can own a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I can treat people with hyperbaric oxygen. So we purchased our own chamber and we put it in. It's here in the office. And we started having such phenomenal results with Cale. I mean, before we had hyperbaric oxygen for this young man, this kid couldn't remember what he had for breakfast. He couldn't tell you what he had for breakfast. The short-term memory is beginning to come back. The long-term memory, this kid's now beginning to remember things that I'm like, you remember that? It's kind of scary because I don't. The personality that he had before he went away to college in Florida is coming back. The Cale that we had in high school is coming back. He's got that funny, joking personality. He's fun-loving again. We're getting our son back. So for us, this has been a journey. This has been an odyssey for us. And if you understand the term odyssey, an odyssey is a journey back home or a trip back to what once was. And so this has been a heck of a really trying time, but yet the trip back home has been so rewarding.
And we know that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people, probably within a 3-hour drive of where we sit right now,
Yeah.
are searching for their way home on their own journey.
These people are out there that are just, Doug, they're looking for, they're on their last hope. They're looking for something to help them, to help a loved one, to come back home, to help them to recover. That's the thing that's so nice about HBO, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, is it's there. It's been there since the 1930s. It's pure oxygen, and it's always been underneath our nose. It's so simple.
Now, and I know somebody can do a Google search on it and find some stuff, but the way you explained it to me on that little sheet of paper at the coffee shop, do you mind just kind of explaining it in layman's terms like that, exactly what hyperbaric oxygen treatment is?
That was a fun afternoon, by the way.
I still have the notes.
That was a good meeting. Thank you for that. The strange thing is that depending on what you want to treat, hyperbaric oxygen is so simple. It's doing nothing more than taking a person and putting them in a pressurized chamber. Our chamber's a 1.3 atmosphere chamber, and we pressurize the chamber and we pump in 94% pure oxygen, and the patient breathes it through the mask. Basically what this does is it saturates the red blood cells, the RBCs, literally with oxygen. So it increases their oxygen capability, carrying capability. But then to top it all off, every fluid in the body is saturated with oxygen. Your cerebral spinal fluid, your CSF, the plasma, which is the liquid part of the blood, which consists of about 55%, normally doesn't usually transport oxygen. But now we're saturating that fluid with oxygen. So if you've got someone with an injury, what we can do, and this is what makes treating diabetic wounds so fantastic with hyperbaric oxygen, is because the plasma gets saturated with oxygen, the plasma is able to get around the cells that need to be debrided in the dead and dying cells and actually supply oxygen to tissue of which aren't getting the oxygen through the blood, through the RBCs. So it's quite a unique way of getting oxygen to cells that aren't getting enough oxygen. Oxygen is the number one nutritional requirement by the body. Stop and look at it like this. On an average day, a person consumes 6 pounds of oxygen. That's more than any other nutrition or nutritional factor that the body takes in. 6 pounds a day. You don't eat 6 pounds of red meat or 6 pounds of chicken, but you consume 6 pounds of oxygen per day. The brain is the oxygen hog of the body. It consumes more oxygen. It consumes 20 to 22% of the oxygen that the body inhales. The only other tissue that consumes more oxygen than the brain is the retina. it consumes the most, but the brain consumes more oxygen than any other part besides the retina.
So it's really triggering a process. It's just not about drinking, or breathing as close to pure oxygen as possible. It's actually triggering a process inside the human body with the red blood cells and those types of things. So that in essence is the backdrop or the foundation that creates all these good things that happen with everybody that have different ailments.
To a certain degree. If you take this down onto a cellular level, each cell in the human body must have oxygen. If you don't believe me, stop breathing. Okay? Each cell must have oxygen to produce energy or to perform that one function that cell performs. Without the oxygen, the mitochondria doesn't work, which is the powerhouse of the cell. It doesn't work. Or if a cell is supposed to produce proteins without the oxygen, it doesn't produce the proteins. Without oxygen, we die. What we're doing is like taking a 12-volt battery and jump starting. We are applying oxygen, which is the nutrition the body needs to repair itself. We're just giving it a hyper charge of it, and we're kick-starting the healing process.
So out of adversity has not only come opportunity but hope, because the love that a father has for his son, you being in a position where you have a license to where you can actually offer this as a treatment, and now you have the passion behind it, and you have seen personally the improvements. So we asked Cale what his personal improvements were, and I want to ask you, the next series of questions I'm going to ask you about each of the individuals that we've interviewed today.
Okay?
Because I want to hear your side of the story. So we'll start with Cale. So
Okay.
At that point in time, you decide, I'm just going to buy one of these and put it in my practice, of what you did. You bought the equipment out of this love and desire that you have for your son, but also you can do it because of your degree and your title and so forth. So you started seeing improvements. Now, you told us about getting to see him walk again, the privilege it was to see him improve. But that was all before you got the chamber in here.
Right.
Pick this story up from that point and take us to where we are today.
Cale is back in the gym. He's lifting. He's working out. I won't let him back on the bicycle without a helmet, though. Boy falls down, goes boom, on bicycles every once in a while. Can't have any more head injuries. Cale's movements are more fluid. It's like Doug, the first day that we had him in the chamber, we got it set up on a Saturday. Put him in the chamber, left him in for an hour and a half, pulled him out, and he comes out and he says, "Wow, I'm really, really tired." And I said, "Well, let's go down, let's eat at Maria's," one of his favorite restaurants. We get down there, and I look at my wife, Cale, sitting across the table from me, and I look at Barb, and I said, "Barb, look at Cale." Prior to the chamber, Cale would pick up a fork, and if he didn't literally stab the food, he had tremors so bad, the food would literally fall off. Okay, so where we're at now is right after immediately after the first dive, after his first treatment, the tremors were gone, and he could pick up a fork and eat normally like a normal person, without fear of his food falling off and landing in his lap. We have intermittent times to where we do see the tremors return whenever he gets nervous or gets upset, or when he hasn't been in the chamber. That's one of the first indications we look for, is that you haven't been in the chamber for about 3 days. You need to get down to the office. So the tremors have subsided. His short-term memory is returned. Cognitively, he's thinking so much better, so much clearer. once we got him off all his medications and once we got him in the chamber, I mean, the difference is night and day in this young man. It's Barb's and my hope that someday that we're able to return our broken little boy, not broken, get him off a disability, and once again make him a productive member of society and make him a taxpayer instead of a tax recipient. And oh my gosh, isn't that a cool thought? Just think what, you know, Doug, if you're a parent, and if you can imagine having a child that is disabled, and like my wife and I, you know, we're the only ones. Cal's got an older brother. My sisters aren't capable of taking care of him, so who's he going to rely on? His brother. And the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the deal. What Barb and I have set out to do, and this is our goal, is fix broke boy. Make him broke no more. Get him to where he can function in society as a regular working person, off a disability, and a tax recipient. To take that burden off of a parent, to where if something happens to me and if something happens to Barb, who's he going to rely on? The federal government, and with the economy like it is and everything being cut? No, I want this boy back on his own and being a productive member of society. I can't think of anything better that you could give a parent that has a child that's disabled.
Well, and it's not only that, but the rising hope in him from the conversation I had with him, in the fact that he has a burning passion within himself now to pay it forward. I asked him the question about how it makes him feel. We talked about how his health has improved, and he echoes much of what you say, of course. But when I asked him about how it made him feel personally to watch Dawson, or to see the improvement in Keeley, your son, I think, has something deep within him now that perhaps he never had before. Is that fair to say?
I would say that's a very fair statement, yes.
So there's a lot of good that's come out of this.
It's given him some direction. Hopefully that, it's opened up some career opportunities for him.
Mm-hmm.
Opened up some doors that he didn't have available for him. Who knows, I might end up with another doctor in the family.
That'd be a good thing to have, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I understand my mother's thrilled when I graduated, so.
So we're looking at expanding, obviously, getting the word out, but more importantly, Cale's health is improving. Where do you see him? Do you see him being 100% in the not too distant future? And tell me about the hope you have for him.
Well, that's one of the really unique things about hyperbaric oxygen is, do I see him at being 100%? Wow, isn't that a fascinating idea? One of the things that happens with hyperbaric oxygen in the brain is it stimulates the production of stem cells. I don't know how far this can go. I don't know that anybody really knows. I can see him being almost 100% though, someday. I really do. 100% of what he used to be. Yeah, I do.
That's a great success story.
Yeah, it is. It is.
In visiting with Candace in Keeley, Candace tells me that she was your patient before, so you knew a little bit about her family in Keeley, of course. So now you have the chamber in, and the wheels start turning, obviously, as I'm sure you probably have a hard time at night sleeping, thinking about all the people you can actually help with this. But tell me about that process with Candace and Keeley and that first conversation you had with her.
You know, I sit down and I explained to Candace, I said, hey, I can't make any promises. This is something fairly new to me. I sit down and explained it to her, and immediately, you bet, let's do it. The changes we have seen with Keely is that she's become more verbal. This young lady would walk by the hall when her mother would leave and hide away. And she'd go by, and she used to always just call me boy. Well, here a couple of weeks ago, she walks by my office, she says, "Thank you, Dr. Skaggs." Waves at me on it. What? So Keely's becoming more and more verbal. There are a couple other things that we're seeing going on with her that I'm really excited about. But yeah, it's tough to sleep at night. It really and truly is. My problem is I need help getting the word out there, because this is here and this is now, and it's simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly very simple.
Right. And not just ailments, but, we've had the conversation that just somebody that wants to be on top of their game.
Oh, yes.
Much like getting a regular chiropractic adjustment or a regular massage treatment, come in, spend an hour, hour and a half in the chamber a couple of times a month.
Or if you're one of those really highly tuned athletes that are out here running these marathons, you want to increase your endurance, you want to increase your performance, I've got a way to help you.
Sure.
You bet.
What is, I asked Candace about her vision of hope for Keely. She said she had hope before because you just do. But now that she's undergoing this treatment, she really kind of lit up.
Yeah.
And it's not just about physically helping improve people, but the emotional impact too. I mean, my gosh, look what it's done for you because of your boy. And that just kind of compounds on itself.
Doug, if you just simply stop and think about it like this, how many people do we have walking the streets that come out of a Missouri rehab, and they come out and conventional medical wisdom says it's an irreversible brain trauma and you're never going to get any better.
Right.
And these people end up on disability. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Can you begin to imagine the economic impact if we could return these people back to a working status, to a taxpayer status, to where disability wouldn't be totally wiped out, but become a thing of the past?
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine the economic ramifications? Wow. It's fascinating to even think about it.
It is. It's almost mind-boggling.
It is.
Dawson, has he been your patient, just your regular patient for a while, or tell me that story from your perspective?
Oh, that man's such a hoot. Dawson's been a patient of mine for years. His son-in-law was a chiropractor in Wichita, so they were familiar with chiropractic. Dawson we were in a study with KU Med treating Parkinson's, and Dawson came through my end of the study, and then he was involved in another study with Cleveland Chiropractic College up in Kansas City, treating Parkinson's and falls. And got to doing the research. In the 6 months I was trying to get my insurance company to pay for Kale's hyperbaric oxygen, I read I don't know how many studies, and I was fascinated. Parkinson's, MS, RSD, reflex sympathetic, ADD, ADHD, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic head injuries, you name it. And basically what it boils down to is all these problems are directly related to a lack of the oxygen to the brain. And here we are, we have a simple tool, and why I approached Dawson, and Dawson looked at me, he says, yeah, let's do it. Since Dawson's been in the chamber, Dawson has, his motion and his movements are more fluid. Parkinson's patients have what we call a festination gait, and they lean forward to get their feet started. If you watch Dawson walk, Dawson doesn't really have to lean forward anymore to get the feet moving. And fascination gait is a shuffling of the feet. Dawson's picking up his feet and he's moving more fluid. The tremors have decreased significantly. They're not totally all gone. Even those are, significantly improved. But overall, you can see a change in Dawson. His voice, one of the things that you find on Parkinson's is that their voice, their muscles begin to deteriorate in the throat. His voice is deeper, it's stronger, and you can hear him talk instead of being real low and low.
Mm-hmm.
He's now very vocal. As a matter of fact, him and Cale have kind of gotten to where they razz each other quite a bit because they see each other coming in and out of the chamber. And they give each other a pretty good hard time.
There's so much good that can come out of all of this. In fact, it is, and it's already started. And like all of us have said, we have that burning desire to get the word out. But it's like what you said earlier. It's interesting that the answer has been right underneath our noses the entire time. It's air.
It's simple air. It's simple air. 78% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, 1% inert gases. We're just taking it and we're upping the percentage of oxygen. You bet.
What's your vision for the next couple of years for the Joplin Metro 4-state area?
You and I had this talk the other day, and who was it, Stephen Little?
Mm-hmm.
Right after the tornado came back.
The Joplin needs to identify itself as
Joplin
something.
needs to identify itself. Right now, Doug, we've got the only mild hyperbaric oxygen chamber within 150, 140 miles radius of Joplin. We're already looking into and preparing to buy our second chamber. We are looking at knocking out a wall and going into the office to the west of us, expanding. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to the manufacturer this afternoon. We're probably going to end up buying 3 before it's all said and done. Man, wouldn't it be nice if Joplin became a healing center for the 4-state area? And it could be done so easily. It can be done so easily. Right now, Doug, I've got patients that are traveling as far as Bentonville up here daily for treatments.
I love that. I love the idea of calling it a healing center because it just stretches the whole gamut. Every single volunteer that came here, they were affected. Everybody that was involved in that tornado was affected. People that lived here, people that were 100, 200 miles away, everybody's affected. So healing has a special meaning in Joplin. And to be able to craft that into what you're doing here, I think that's what we need to do.
I think Joplin needs an identity. And why not? Just make it a mecca for healing.
Tell me about your personal passion for what you do. Why do you have that passion?
Doug, there was one that was before me that used his hands to heal. And I consider it a great honor. Not that I'm comparing myself to anybody else, but the privilege of being able to use my hands. Chiropractic literally means the practice of the hands. And to be able to use my hands like one before me who healed with his hands, it's a great honor. It's a great honor. So I just want to be able to do I want to be able to do what's right and be able to heal as many as I can, help as many as I can. I also want to learn as much as I can. And this has been a heck of a learning experience.
Do you think that the hyperbaric oxygen treatment is something you found, or has it found you?
Doug, for everything that happens. There is a reason, okay? Why Kayla had an allergic reaction to medication, I don't know. I know that everything that has followed, that there is a specific reason. I don't question it. I just know that I'm in the right place, at the right time, doing the right thing. I can't question it. I'm in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. I mean, the federal government is looking at this. And they're sitting here, they're looking at the number of the head injuries that are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. Since 2000, there was 203,333 traumatic head injuries. From mild traumatic head injuries to penetrating injuries. And the conventional wisdom of the medical field isn't working. It's not working for these guys. Right now, every 80 minutes, there is a veteran that has returned from Afghanistan or Iraq that attempts suicide. Every 80 minutes. Unfortunately, on the average, 18 a day, they succeed in their attempt. The conventional idea of treating traumatic head injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder with drugs and medication simply isn't working. And so far, research has demonstrated for every dollar that they spend treating these veterans returning, it saves the federal government $100 on treatment compared to conventional medication. What a way to save money and to save a life.
That's a great pathway too.
Mm-hmm.